Hello, my name is Andy and I am a sex educator. And if you've just looked at the title of this video and thought, that's a bit confusing, well, you're right. Well, in this video, I intend to tell you why I'm not a sex educator, or why people think I'm not a sex educator. There are some reasons actually which are very valid, and I completely understand why people say, well, you can't possibly be a sex educator. Other ones are a bit dicey. But before we do that, I'd like to say my name is Andy, and we do sex education content on this channel regularly, which is a great reason to stick around and learn stuff. So firstly, it's important to say that sex educator is not what is called a protected title. That means that pretty much actually anybody could just use it. Unless they've been given some court order or something like that, at least in the UK, where they say, no, you can't call yourself a sex educator, then anybody could call themselves a sex educator. This is unlike things like being a doctor. You have to be a doctor, either a PhD or a medical doctor, to call yourself doctor. That's an actual legal thing. Also, you cannot call yourself the Duchess of Lancaster unless you are the Duchess of Lancaster. That's, it's legally, you cannot call yourself that. So in many ways, this is a short video, right? I call myself a sex educator, therefore I am a sex educator. But I completely understand that that's not good enough for a lot of people. And, you've got to have some sort of way of backing up that. So I'm not a sex educator because I can't just say I'm a sex educator. Fair. But do I have sex education qualifications? No, I don't. I don't have specific qualifications in sex education. And you might think, oh, well, you definitely can't call yourself a sex educator then. But what I do have is two other things. Firstly, I have a qualification in training. I have what's known as train the trainer qualification. So I went off when I was a staff member at Students' Union to do a course in training other people in various things. It was mostly aimed at doing training courses with students and people in the Students' Union, but the skills are the same, right? You plan something, you have a point, you have learning objectives, and at the end of the training, you should have delivered that training. The fact of the matter is that you don't actually have to be knowledgeable about the thing you're training about if you have the right resources. But if you're delivering training on, I don't know, how to pass your theory test for driving, then as long as you have the right resources, you can deliver that training, and that day you are educating people on how to pass their theory test. Therefore, you are, if you like, a driving theory test educator. Yeah? I mean, that sounds perfectly reasonable to me, yeah? Now, by no means do you need a training qualification to deliver training. I delivered training before I had a training qualification. But, of course, having a training qualification definitely helps with this. But the second thing I did was I was the welfare officer in my Students' Union. So I had some training on how to deliver welfare campaigns, and some of those campaigns obviously were sexual health campaigns. So I have an amount of training, about sexual health and the things that you need to know about and that kind of thing, and then actually delivering campaigns on them. So not delivering training on them, but delivering awareness campaigns. So again, with the training qualification, which I got after being a welfare officer, but with that training qualification and with that knowledge from being a welfare officer, put those two together, I now have, I think, the knowledge to be a sex educator. And you might say, rightly, that, well, hasn't sex education moved on since then, since you were an officer? Yes, it has. But just like being a teacher in a school, where education moves on and you continue to learn stuff all the way through, you might go and indeed do training courses while you're a teacher, or, you might just study the subject more. You are able to deliver that knowledge, even though what you were taught in your degree, maybe, or however else you learnt what you're teaching now, is changed or has moved on. And of course, that's the kind of thing that I do. And I do that by doing things like reading books, which you can't see. But, books like this one, yeah? That's Ruby's book up there. And this one, Emily Nagoski's book, yeah? Maybe next time I'll actually bring those down on the shelf that you can see them, because that would be nice in the background of a video, wouldn't it? Yeah. I agree. So I have a training qualification and I have the knowledge and I am refreshing that knowledge and I'm getting more knowledge all the time. Two things together, surely I could be a sex educator. And there's a lot of you saying, no, because now you're going to tell me, well, hang on, isn't a lot of sex education about personal experience and learning from that and, potentially using that information in education? And I'm like, well, yeah, a lot of it is. A lot of teaching is about that as well. However, you're right that I have only ever had one type of sex, and that is straight sex. Penis in vagina sex, heterosexual sex, and all the other things which heterosexual people do. And in many ways, I haven't even had the plethora of heterosexual sex, right? In many ways, that's not even enough. So how can he teach about men who have sex with men, women who have sex with women, or even the female part of heterosexual sex? How can you possibly do that? And I say, fair enough. But there's two things that I do. Firstly is the research, which I talked about just before. But, I talk to women. I talk to gay men. I talk to lesbians. And if they perchance would like to tell me about how they deal with things, then that's really useful. I talk to bisexual people because their experience of all of these things, including heterosexual sex, is different to mine. And it's useful to have that knowledge coming in from different places and putting it together, and I can then, use that. Indeed, there's a few people that might say, well, you can't possibly be a sex educator because you're a straight man. But it's like, yeah, well, you've got a point there because there aren't many of us. The amount of times that I've been to a sex ed kind of thing and I've been asked, so how did you get into sex ed? As if that's like, how's that possible? How did you get into sex ed? You can't possibly be interested in sex ed. You're a straight man. And I get that as well, because of course a lot of sex education is born out of particularly straight men, but men in general, giving their opinions on things and like education and curriculums and things like that. And you end up with what you had 20 to 30 years ago, where education was not great and it specifically was about heterosexual sex most of the time, if you're lucky. But don't worry, everybody. Straight men can be sex educators too. There's nothing against it. Which is useful, really, isn't it? Another reason why people say I can't be a sex educator is because I've never actually done sex education with people. I haven't gone into a school, I haven't gone into a group of people and done sex education with them. Well, yeah, that's fair. I haven't done that. But there are many ways that you can deliver sex education. One of them is how you're viewing this video now on the internet. I hope you can see from the rest of the videos on this channel that the vast majority of them are about sex education and topics like that. Surely, me imparting that knowledge on the internet and people watching it, and they do, makes me a sex educator. Okay, so what have I covered? So I've got training qualification, I've done being a welfare officer in the Students' Union, so I've got that knowledge. I do research with books, I talk to people. I'm not excluded from being a sex educator because of my gender and sexual orientation. That's good. So what else? Why else do people think I can't be a sex educator? Yes, it's because nobody told me that I could. Under no circumstances was anybody told as a child in their careers advisor sessions that they could be a sex educator. That was never a career choice. You would maybe told you could be a teacher. You may be told that you could be something like a healthcare professional, a nurse, or a doctor. But I'm pretty sure that nobody was told in the sessions with their careers advisors that they could actually be something like a sex educator. Well, now I've given you all the reasons why I'm a sex educator. I've kind of debunked, I think, a lot of the reasons which people maybe have told me in the past why I can't be a sex educator. Why can you be a sex educator? Because you could be. If you are knowledgeable in the subject, if you either have lived experience or you are well read in a subject, you have lots of sources to what you say, then you can absolutely either go online or be a teacher or train a group using that knowledge in sex education. So there are loads of ways that you could be a sex educator. You could be a healthcare professional. You could be somebody who trains specifically to be a sex educator and go to schools. You could volunteer for a charity. You could volunteer when you're a student. You could set up your own business if you have the right qualifications. If you've got the right know-how and you know what you're doing and you deliver good training, then you can absolutely do that. You could literally do training to be a sex educator, and that's something that maybe I will do in the near future. You could do a master's or even an undergraduate in sexual health and sex education and sexual stuff. There's lots of different courses and they're all named different things. And you can even start some sort of social media account and deliver it that way. Absolutely fine. If you do that correctly with the right information, then you are a sex educator. And there's nobody who can tell you otherwise. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. You can do that just down below. Do leave a comment. Tell me if you're interested in being a sex educator. If you think you could be a sex educator maybe in future. I make videos regularly, so subscribe and click the little bell icon so you know when I next upload. And therefore, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.